It's here, guys. Let's check out the review. How's it going, everyone? It's Gavin from Balls2U, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Reptichip. That's right, it's here in the UK, courtesy of Paul over at Urban Constrictors, so thanks a lot, mate, for making that happen, and obviously with JT producing the product. But first, before we get into the nitty gritty of Reptichip, I want to give my boy Alan a quick shout out. Alan over at No Limit Morphs, go and give him a follow on Instagram and Facebook. Really proud of him, he's done really well. He completed his first show the other weekend over at the IHS Doncaster Racecourse. So yeah, congratulations, mate, really proud of you. So let's look at the Reptichip. It's here in the UK and is available for us. Thank God. It's been a long time coming, but it's here. When I spoke to Paul, he basically said, look, Gav, you know, here's a block, please do an honest review, and this is what it's going to be. You guys know I don't BS, I tell you the truth, I tell you the facts, and that's because I have to use the product to know exactly what I'm going to put out there. Everything that I'm going to put out is what I've found, what I've experienced, and there's no salesman in me. Whatever I tell you is not to sell the product, it's just to tell you the facts, and for you guys to make up your own mind if it's something you want to have. Let's talk about two things. First and foremost, we've got Reptichip now, and we have Reptichip. Now, a lot of videos out there that have been put out there have been using Reptichip and Reptichip and using them as a side-by-side comparison. However, that's quite unfair, and the reason for that is because Reptichip is a premium brand coconut bedding. Reptichip is not a premium branded product, and I'm going to tell you a few things. So on a couple of people's websites who are selling it, they're saying it's a premium coconut bedding. If you go onto their website, certainly when I looked, I could not see the word premium coconut bedding. So with Reptichip, it is a premium bedding. Reptichip is not a premium bedding. Let's look at the comparison. With Reptichip, it is just pure coconut chips. With Reptichip, it is coconut chips, but it's also got coconut soil. Okay, now what I mean by the soil, it's almost like dirt, if you like, in there, but it's not dirt as we know it. It is basically from the coconut being grounded down. So it's got a multiple layer of substances in that block. So in the Reptichip, you will have coconut husk, coconut chips, and coconut soil. In the Reptichip, it's mainly all coconut chips and like a husk type material. You don't get none of the soil. Using those two as a comparison, because when people say, you know, it's dirty and it's dusty, that's because like I said, the Reptichip or the Tropi bed has that substance in there, that coconut soil. Reptichip doesn't have that. There's a bit of an unfair, you know, sort of comparison, if you like, to start off. Let's talk about price point. Price point, a lot of people have argued that Reptichip is quite expensive. Let's break it down. So Reptichip is £15 a block, a breeder's block, and Reptichip do other products, but at the moment we only have the breeder's block that's available here in the UK. So the breeder's block is £15 here in the UK. The Reptichip is £30 for 3 blocks, so £10 a block. If we're going to talk on comparison, again, a lot of people who have done the Reptichip review, they've basically showed how much more bedding you get in one block. It's factual. You do get more bedding from the Reptichip, and that's because a block of Reptichip is 50 to 55 litres. Once expanded, the Reptichip is 82 to 83 litres. So straight away, it's factual. You do get more in your block of Reptichip as you do in Reptichip. So let's talk about value for money. If you look at it on a brick per brick scale, like I said, Reptichip is £15, Reptichip is £10. Reptichip is more money, but for an extra £5, you're getting nearly 30 litres more than what you are with Reptichip. Value for money, I feel Reptichip wins. Reptichip's not paying me to say this, or JT or Paul aren't saying me, paying me to say this. This is what I've seen for myself. I've researched it. That's why I haven't put the video out straight away. I've used the product, I've done my research, and I know factual the difference. A couple of people have messaged me regarding they're worried about swapping over from whatever bedding they're on now to going to Reptichip. So I'm going to talk a little bit in depth about that. I've used Lignocell, I've used Aspin back in the day, I've used, obviously you guys know I'm a proprietor of Plain Paper, I've used Megazorb, obviously in Reptichip, and I've also used Cypress Mulch. Lignocell for me was, I used Aspin, got rid of that. That was just not ideal. It was just something, for some reason I just tried it, but that was way back in the day. Tried Lignocell. Lignocell to me was very messy, didn't really hold humidity very well. It absorbed moisture, which means when the snakes went to the bathroom, it would absorb that. A couple of things, when I was feeding my hatchlings and they dropped the prey item, they'd pick it back up and start to eat it. There'd be pieces of Lignocell sticking out the mouth, which really stressed me out. So I didn't want to use it for that reason. But the other reason was, the one weekend I was doing a change, swapping over, exchanging out the Lignocell for fresh Lignocell. The next day I noticed 2 of my snakes were sitting knee deep in their water bowl, which they never normally do. So I looked a little bit closer, and these 2 snakes had got mites. Now fortunately, the mite cycle that was attached to them, or the mites that were attached to them, weren't in that stage where they were sort of going to start producing eggs. I caught it in the early stages. So straight away I got rid of the bedding. Got rid of the bedding, put them straight into quarantine, treated them for mites, and within literally a few days they were back to normal and everything was okay. However, no one had visited the HQ. I hadn't been anywhere, so I know the mites hadn't come from an external source in other than the bedding. So, and you believe it or not, guys, mites will travel. If you go and buy the bedding from a shop or anywhere like that, mites will travel from a shop, if you like, to your home or to your facility or to wherever you're keeping your snakes. That's why whenever you do go to a reptile show, or whenever you do go to a reptile shop, just change your clothes, make sure you don't go in there, all that sort of good stuff, practice quarantine levels, if you like, or quarantine procedures. So straight away I went straight back onto Plain Paper, and I stayed on Plain Paper ever since. Tried a couple of my animals on Megazorb. It was okay, it just didn't work for me. A couple of my friends use Megazorb and they're happy with it, and that works fine. Until last year, when I thought, right, okay, let's give this Reptichip a try. The mistake I made was I changed all my animals onto Reptichip straight away. And the one thing I noticed, and this is factual again, 95% of my animals went off food. Straight away, didn't want to eat. For me, that was again a stress, a headache, so I swapped everything back onto Plain Paper. And also I noticed it was staining the tubs, and the stainage was coming from the soil within the block, not the actual coconut bits, but the soil that was in there. So changed everything back. 95% of my animals went back onto food, other than one, and that one female that basically I'd had her from nerve for years, a beautiful snake, would not feed on Plain Paper. Changed her onto Reptichip. She started smashing food. So that one female I kept on Reptichip, and she's been smashing food ever since, so everything's all good. So obviously I'll swap her out for the Reptichip. Swapped everything back, everything went back on food, no issues. When changing bedding over, I would advise you do it stages, okay? Change a few tubs as you're cleaning, change them over, a bit at a time. The other thing you'll find is when you are coming from Plain Paper or from a paper type substrate to a material bedding or a substrate bedding, you're going to have a difference in the gap between the hot spot and the snake. So what that basically means is the hot spot that you originally set your rack at is going to be a lot lower, because you've got now a bigger distance between the snake and the hot spot. So now you're going to have to dial in your stat or your rack or even your room, okay? So that will also affect the humidity in your room, will raise as well with the substrate that you're putting in. With that in mind, you will also have to consider about the condensation. The condensation side of things comes from a bedding that's too wet. So obviously the idea between with the Reptichip is to raise the humidity in the tub. Now what we don't want to do, we don't want to raise the humidity, then it drop, and then we raise it again, then we drop it again. You know, that sort of type of high and low humidity will stress an animal out and will bring on RI, which kind of leads me on to my next issue. I've had a few people who I know who have had an RI through bedding which has been too wet, and again what happens is the humidity is way too high and then it drops too sudden, and then they soak it down again, goes way back up, and this is where the snake is going to get stressed out. Now on a lot of racks you tend to get a 20% ventilation, and it's normally towards the front. Okay, so over the hot spot you will have condensation and the humidity will be a lot higher at the hot spot than it will at the cool end or where the ventilation is. The other thing you'll have is the snake will go in the water, knock the water over into the bedding, which will also raise humidity. And this is an experiment you guys can do for yourself. You can get a little humidity tester, obviously on a little bit of a smaller scale, put that in your tub, you can read the humidity, and then what you can do from there is then put the snake in and then reread the humidity again, and you'll see the humidity will be higher. So you've got to try and find that fine balance between the right humidity as opposed to too much humidity. Okay, and a few people have commented as well and are a bit worried about the condensation on the tubs. Now a couple of people have sort of dismissed that and gone, oh look, there's no condensation. That's because they've got air holes along where there's no condensation. Where they've got condensation, there is no air holes, and that's because obviously the condensation or the humidity can escape. Now I'm not saying to you guys to go out and start putting loads of air holes in your tubs. What I'm saying is control the water that you're putting into the substrate. So don't go mad with the water. You know, make it almost like a 50% dry, 50% damp mixture. Okay, mix it all up, and you've got that sort of, you've got that control. My great old, bless her, Nan used to say when she used to get me to bake cakes. Don't believe I'm telling you this. She always used to say to me, you can always add, but you can't take it away. So it's the same sort of principle. You can add more water, it's just going to be very difficult to take it away if you make it too wet. So always do it stages at a time. Okay, and I'm going to show that in the video, which I'll show you on preparing the block, and I'll show you I'll do it 2 litres at a time to get the right consistency I feel for my snakes all the way I want it to be. So we've touched on the price, we've touched on the quantity, we've touched on the quality. We've also obviously touched on the amount of water we're going to put into the Reptichip as well, and again I'll show you that in a moment. The one thing I want to touch on as well is when a snake goes to the bathroom. When a snake goes to the bathroom, it wheezes lots, and the fluid that comes out of a snake is crazy. Again in this video I'm going to show you now, you'll see there's a lot of fluid there, and that fluid basically is brought on due to the snake going to the bathroom. Now with plain paper you can see that, and you can take the snake out, you can change the paper, get rid of the moisture, give it a quick wipe round, new paper in there, the snake goes back in, everyone's happy. The substrate will obviously absorb that moisture, so even though this substrate is great for holding humidity or helping with humidity, obviously helping with odor control and also absorption, you also need to be mindful that that urine is in that substrate. Maybe this will, Reptichip will stop you from changing out the bedding so often, but I would also advise keep doing your spot checks. Okay, if you see piece of poo, or if you see urine, urates, or if you see an area which is quite clogged up, just get all of it out, put a little bit of fresh bedding in, mix it all up, and you're good to go. What I have been doing is swapping over my snakes. So I've been swapping over the hatchlings. Every time the tub needs clean, I've swapped it over onto the Reptichip. I'm going to keep my hatchlings on Reptichip, and the ARS rack is going to be on Reptichip as well. The breeding females are going to be on plain paper. That's because they feel better on there. I can control the temps a lot better. I can also see what's going on with a female that's tail wagging. So for me, I'm going to keep them on plain paper. There's only one animal that wouldn't lock for me, so I put some Reptichip in there, and then guess what? He locked. He was a proven breeder for Aussie. and I feel that because Ozzy used a substrate, I thought, let me try a substrate with him, and it locked. Now I'm not saying that was because of the substrate. It could have been the conditions were bang on and he decided to lock, but it's certainly handy to know. Moving forward, I will do exactly the same. So whatever female he goes in to see, I'll take out the paper, I'll put some Reptichip in there, and obviously I'll put the 2 snakes in there, and we'll see where we go from there. So moving forward, that's a little something. And then once I've finished, I will get rid of the Reptichip and then put fresh paper back in that female, and because obviously they prefer the paper. So that's what I'm going to do. That's my plans anyway. Okay, like I said guys, do it a stage at a time. With the ARS rack here, it's also handy with the Reptichip because it can go around the water bowl, and I'll show you. So as you can see, these ARS tubs have the water bowl in place, and as you can see, the Reptichip goes nicely around there, because when the snake goes over there or moves around, it's going to knock the water down. Okay, I don't know if you can see as well, there is condensation here, more so here than there is here, simply because the 20% air holes or ventilation is over this way as opposed to being this way. So this is still nice and humidity, or the humidity is still nice and high, and again we've got condensation there, and again towards the front it is sort of drying out, and again you've got the hot spot here which will dry out quicker I suppose than the back, but you've got that nice sort of even gradual sort of high humidity going down to low humidity because of the ventilation. So be mindful where your ventilation is on your tubs. Okay, so with that being said, like I said, let's get into the block. I'm going to show you how to set it up. I think I've covered everything, or I think I've covered everything I want to cover in this video. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. Let's get into the video, let's show you how I break it down, and let's take a closer look at the product. Okay, let's get this product in the bin and let me show you how I feel this may work for making it as less mess as possible. So the first thing we're going to do, and the good thing I like about this Reptichip, and this is the breeder's block, okay, that we have here in the UK, is it's got this cool handle. Really like that, that's cool. So the first thing we're going to do guys, we are going to put the handle off, like so. So we're going to take the cool Reptichip sign out. So basically now what we've got a bag that we can use to hold the moisture, because again guys, like I said, for me I like it to be sort of a 50-50. I like it to be 50% dry, 50% sort of wet. So we're going to add some water now. So this is just some, yes please, this is some lukewarm water, and all we're going to do is just going to pour it straight over the top. Like so.
When I hold it, it feels like the water is like going down to the floor, and like when it's
straight away. Yeah, that's right. And straight away we can see the block actually expanding. So that just goes to show. And at the bottom there was a water line, and the water line has just been pulled into that block itself. And as you can see,
it used to be that small. That was this big.
That's right. So as you can see now, it's expanding, but everything now, the water is still being held in there. Like I said, at the bottom of the bag there was a water line, and that's been quickly absorbed and pulled into the block, which is fantastic, which is exactly what we want to do. We want the block to take on the water and for us not to lose the water. So I'm going to get one more jug, and as you can see now, this bag's really tight, and you can see that coconut mulch is basically pulling it, sort of that water in and expanding beautifully. So I'm going to go and get one more jug. So here is a second jug. These jugs, for your reference, are 2,000 millilitres, which is 2 litres. So again, one more jug. Again,
it's going bigger and bigger.
Yeah, which is what we like.
Yeah, it's sucking up.
So again,
all the water.
There's no water line at the bottom because the Reptichip is taking on the water. Fantastic. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the Reptichip, you can hear it sucking in all the water.
It's satisfying.
Yes, it is that, sweetheart. So as you can see now, we've got a block that's very tight in this plastic cover, and that for me, like I said guys, keeps It's quite heavy. So that for me, guys, is how I think I'm going to do mine in future. Again, just give it a few seconds or a minute or two just for it to take on the water, and I'll try and show you guys at the bottom. There is no water at the bottom. The coconut has basically absorbed all the water.
It's been sucked up.
That's right.
Into all the depth.
And as you can see there, we've got some dry areas there, which is fine. So now that has taken on 4 litres of water. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to cut this open and we're going to let that sort of break down into the tub, and we're going to look at the consistency, i.e. do we need to add more water or less water. But this is what I'm going to do.
This is what we saw earlier. The water was squeezing out.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it, sweetheart?
Careful.
So I'll just show you, it just breaks down dead easy now, falling apart.
Because all the water's breaking it up now, because it used to be hard. Now the water is making it even softer.
That's correct. You can see we've still got some dry pieces in there, which is fine, because like I said, what we don't want to do, we don't want to submerge it or put loads of water into the coconut bedding, because like I said, that will make it too wet. So you can always add, it'll be very difficult to take it away.
It's very warm. It's like it's in the fireplace. Oh my god, that's a picture. It's very dry. Oh, this is hard.
Yeah, so that's good. So now what we'll do, we'll lift this out, half a block, and as you can see, Liza's got there a nice dry piece, which is fine.
Big and
again,
chunky.
what we've got some nice wet chunks in there, and we've also got some dry chunks, and we can mix that round. Again, if we're not going to use this straight away, you know, not getting it completely wet is probably the way forward.
And I'm going to be taking out some of this, or maybe not. When Dad comes back, I might take some out. And so I'm just going to pull the out all that excess from what's been emptied out, what's been like falling off already. There's a lot what's been falling off, as you can see. So you can squeeze this. You can see more water in there.
Okay, for the half the bag that I've got left, I'm gonna add another 2 litres of lukewarm water.
I've been talking about them looking at all this excess falling off already.
So that's 6 litres of lukewarm water so far the Reptichip has taken for it to break down, and again, so I think about another 2 litres, so probably 8 litres of water in total. I think I'd be happy with.
You can like smooth it out so then like it breaks easily. So like then you can get all the excess out and it'll be easier.
So it's kind of nice, guys. Like I said, you know, as you can see, we've still got a little bit of dry patches, which is fine, and we've got some nice wet areas. So again, once we mix that down, I'm going to do a few more tubs now with this, so that'll bring that down. It's not an airtight tub. I do like it to breathe a little bit, so this will be fine. So again, what we're going to do now, me and Eliza, we're going to do a few more tubs, and we'll take a look at some of the snakes that we've put on the Reptichip. So as you can see, guys, I've taken the snake out. This snake has been in there now probably for around about a week on the Reptichip. As you can see, the snake does knock the Reptichip into the water, and that's why I say to you guys, don't put too much in, you know, feel it out. As you can see, the snake has basically moved the substrate so we can get to the hot spot. Okay, so bear in mind you will have to adjust the hot spot on your racks, but for now, like I said, I don't use too much. The snake's pushed it all up, and as you can see, it has pushed it in and it has discoloured the water. Again, not an issue, just tip it all out like so. Okay, and we'll just get rid of that. I'll just tip that in there out the way. Okay. Freshen it back up like so. Okay, and as you can see, it's not really discoloured the actual plastic tub, so I'm not going to throw that away. I'm just going to use it. It'll be fine. As you can see, nice clean water, and again, very easy to use. I am very fond of the product, and I do feel it is the best we have here in the UK, and possibly it is the best all over the world. Every product or every bedding will have its downside. That's why there's that many variations, but you guys have to work out what works for you. Just see how you guys get on, swap a few of them over and take it a step at a time. So there we have it, guys. That is the true and honest review of the Reptichip. I've finally got my hands on it and I've been able to test it for myself. There are a few bad points, but like I said, guys, nothing's perfect. However, it is as close to perfect as what we're going to get, I feel, in the hobby. And I do feel moving forward I'm going to be using it a lot more here in the HQ. So again, guys, thanks for all your support. Stay positive, try and inspire people, lift people up, be a better you. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Also make sure at the same time you hit that notification bell. If you haven't hit the notification bell, have a look now. That's right, have a look now. And make sure it's lit up, because otherwise you will miss when I upload. Okay, but for now I'm going to leave you guys to it. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.